Hello and welcome to another video. And do you know what, thank you for all your support. And the last Timeslip video went crazy, over 5,000 views, and really appreciate it. I get the message, you like those weird videos, the time slips, not the mega spooky ones, but I'm still going to continue going out and visiting these locations because that's what my channel is about. But I do enjoy telling you the time slip stories, so we will be continuing with them, and we'll be doing one today as well, so I hope you're happy. This one, actually, it was inspired by one of the subscribers, Karen French. Now, she commented about one of the experiences that she had, and it involved some railroad workers and all this, and it triggered my memory about something that I'd come across back in about 97, and it was in Haytor Devon, and I had to go away, dig up through my old books and find it. But I found the story, but back then I actually done quite a lot of research on it, and I found a lot more information out at the time. As you go through and you collate loads of stories, you don't always fixate on one. You hear a bit, you bank it away, and it generally builds up. But this was one because I remember getting this book years ago, reading it, and this one jumps out at me then. And just over the years, when I heard about these events happening down there, I always just banked it in my mind, or wrote it down on one of my notepads, and eventually I knew I'd get to say a story about it, but I forgot about it when I started making the videos. But you can hear it today, so hope you enjoy this one. This is the Phantom Cottage, or the Disappearing Cottage, or the cottage that never was. You'll make up your own mind on this, but we'll get into it now. So we first hear about this story from Ruth St Ledger Gordon in her book Folklores and Witchcraft of Dartmoor, and that was in 1973. But the stories that she put in there were collated over many years, and then she put them into her book. And after it got published, some more stories come out, and then a ghost book come out in about 96. Once that ghost book was published, more stories come out about that area, and it is all about this Phantom Cottage. And it is very strange because it seems to appear and then disappear. And this is set in a wooded area of Haytor, or is it Haytor Vale? And this is actually in the village of Haytor, and it seems to be this little, not private woodland, but it is owned by somebody. And back in the late 60s, a lady is walking around the wooded area and stumbles across this cottage, and she describes it as so quaint and old English, and there's washing out to dry, and she just thinks it's absolutely beautiful. And on the way back out, she bumps into the gentleman who owns the woodland, and she asks about the cottage. And he goes, "There's no cottage there." And she's like, "What?" So to satisfy her own mind, she turns around and walks back into the woods to where the cottage was, and it's gone. It's not there. She looks around the ground, and there's no sign of a cottage ever being there. There's no ruins there. And you could put this down off to a one-off, or she wandered off into the wrong wooded area. But if that was just one instance, you could just leave it at that. These stories built and built over the next few years, and then and then it pops up again. So I've been jet washing the decking all day. My voice is I feel like I got dehydrated. My voice is really croaky. I actually think I'm a bit burnt as well. Do you know, below that is completely white. It's just my neck. Look at that. Oh no, that's really bad. Yeah, I'm pretty burnt. Yeah, so anyway, getting back to the story. The next time we hear about it, it's actually from somebody who is new to the area, and she moves into a house that overlooks the woodland. And she's looking out of her window, and she notices this cottage. And she thinks, "Oh, that looks absolutely lovely. I'm going to walk down to see who's living there. Make friends." She sets off, walks directly in line with where she believes this cottage is. Walking into the woods, and again, she can't find it. And she's like, a little bit puzzled by this, but thinks she might make a wrong turning or something like that. So she backtracks and walks back up the hill. She gets to her garden and looks back out and again can see the cottage there. Again, off she trots, walking directly towards this cottage, and she gets down there and it's gone. She can't find it. And she's really puzzled by this, but when she goes back this time, she looks back out over the woods, she can't see the cottage. So again, this cottage has disappeared. But I think the most compelling one so far is this one. We've got an audience survey officer, and he's out around the area mapping the new roads that are being planned or designed for the area. He looks out over this wooded area and thinks that, how did he miss this cottage? He's looking down on this cottage in this wood that has smoke coming out the chimney, and he goes to investigate because it's not on the map that he has, and he needs to include it on that destination. He walks down there and he starts taking measurements from a certain point. You probably know how this all works more than me. If you're into camping and you need to do the audience survey properly, he's making markings towards where this cottage is. Now, I trust him that he's been doing this for a long time. He's not likely to go off track, get lost or anything like that. He heads directly to where this cottage is in the woods, and it's not there. It's gone. He comes back, and again he can see this cottage with smoke coming out the chimney, and he's thinking, I'm sure I didn't go wrong. He tracks it, goes down into the woods, and it's gone. Now, Sir Ledger Gordon, when she done her research, she went and contacted the local officers and everything to find out what the history of that bit of land was. And what she was told is that there are no remains in that wooded area of any cottages or anything like that. She again spoke to the landowner, who assured her that again there's nothing ever been built in that land, and she put it down to maybe a vision of the future rather than a vision of the past. You may say a time slip, you may say a different alternate reality or a different timeline, whatever you want to call it. As I said, once these stories come out, more reports were made of it. When I come across this story, I decided I was going to call the local pub, because if anyone knows more stories, it's going to be the local pub in this little village. Back in about 99, that is what I did. I called this pub, and lucky enough I made notes of the conversation. I'll read out some of the notes I made at the time, but then I'll tell you the stories that he told me as well. And they are, first of all, I've put down the block inn. It's the rock inn, so I got that wrong when I was making the notes. I think that was just my handwriting at the time, or my typing at the time. So I've asked him if he has seen it himself or if anyone has seen it, and he replies, I have not seen it myself. I have taken a walk over to the woods, but I've never been able to find it. I do know of 3 locals that say they have seen it. I don't question their honesty, but it does all seem a bit strange to me. Maybe people are just a bit mad. And then I asked him if there's a lot of interest of people come in and ask about this, and he replies, it's not something that comes up that often. Over the years I have been asked if I know anything about this cottage, but generally it isn't very often. There are some paranormal investigators like yourself that seem to know more about it than me. And then after a while the conversation changed, and he started being a little bit more open with me about some of the local reports. They are, I guess, strange, and they do sort of fit into the same sort of format of what we know about already in this area. But one of them was the local postman. Now, the local postman, you think, will know every spot in that area, but he's coming down the hillside in his van, he's looking over, and like the audience survey gentleman, he sees this cottage that he's never noticed before with smoke coming out the chimney. And he comes back down into the village. When he goes up to one of the villagers, he turns around and says, I've never noticed that cottage up there before. And they're like, what cottage? And he points over to where the wooded area is, and she goes, there's no cottage over there. He goes, oh, I've just seen it. And what he says to the landlord is that then he gets out and goes for this walk up to the woods to have a look around to see if he can find his cottage. And he can't find it. He comes back, but he doesn't forget about it. So when he's coming back the next day, he's looking out for this cottage, and he doesn't see it. Then the deep winter months come, when there are no leaves on the trees at all. He's coming back down that road, and he looks over, and again he sees this cottage just standing out like a bright shining light, this really quaint old English style cottage in the middle of this woodland. So all the leaves are fallen off the tree and it's exposed. He's like, I can find it now, I'm going to have a look at it. And again he drives down and he parks up, gets out, walks, and apparently this is about a 10-minute walk from the village to where this wooded area is, so it's not right in the village centre. He walks off, and apparently there's some up and down hills, and he's trying to keep his line of sight where he knows his cottage is. And again he gets there, he's walking through this wooded area and there's nothing there. Again he leaves there puzzled, he can't work out what this is. And this is what seems to be the common report around this area. Now Dartmoor has got a lot of myths and legends around it, and and Haytor has got its own little ghost stories as well. That the village is meant to be haunted on the corner sign, and somebody died there and they lay flowers there, and this person is meant to be seen on the corner, like the crossroads. We've also got reports of UFO sightings over the village, and so they've been reported these strange lights over the village and then they disappear. It seems to go quiet for a little while. In 2003, we have a group of hikers that are on a little trek. They walk down through the valley. I guess that's why it's called Haytor Vale, in a valley. I'm guessing it's got to be in it. Yeah. So again, they are walking for this little walk, and they're going from Haytor Vale over to Dartmoor. They're walking down and they see the wooded area, and they're going to cut through the wooded area heading up towards Dartmoor. They cut through this wooded area, and as they do so, they stumble upon this cottage. And they said originally they thought it looked really, really quaint and like really old English style. When they got closer to it, they realised that there was no glass in the windows, and all the glass had been knocked out. The door on the front was broken, and they was able to walk into this cottage. They walked in there, and they said that the cottage had been absolutely destroyed inside. Not as if it's been vandalised, but as if somebody has gutted that cottage. And they think it's such a shame because it looks absolutely beautiful. They don't think much more of that, and they go off and complete their walk. On their return, they walk through the same place again, expecting to see this cottage, and the cottage isn't there. They stop off in the pub on the way back, and they talk about this cottage. And everyone's looking at them going, don't know what you're talking about. There's no cottage in that woods. And then somebody starts laughing and says, that's the Phantom Cottage. And they get filled in on the history of this Phantom Cottage. Only a year after that, we have another instance where a visitor to the area, so again these are people that don't really know the area that very well, comes down, parks their car in the village and goes off for a walk with their dog. And they're walking along, and as I say, I can't pin this forest down, by the way. I'm going to say that. I'm going to give you some options. I'm going to put these forests and these woods on here, and you can pick what one it is, because I can't work it out. All the information I've had, they've told me 10-minute walk from the church, 10-minute walk from the pub, 10-minute walk from the crossroads. There's about 3 or 4 of these little wooded areas it could be. So take your pick. If you can go and try and find it, good luck. But again, could that add to the confusion? Is there a cottage in one of these woodlands that people get mixed up with the other one? On this story, this lady is walking along with her dog, and they're going past the wooded area, and the dog runs off, and she is calling out for this dog again and again and again, and the dog is not coming back. This is really unusual for her dog to do this. Normally it's so obedient, and it never strays from her side, or if it does, it just comes straight back. She knows where it's heading because she see it run off into the wooded area. She starts to follow it, and then she can hear it barking. She's walking through the woods, and she starts making out a building in the middle of the woodlands, and soon she breaks through into a little bit of a clearing, and again she describes a absolutely beautiful idyllic English cottage, thatched roof, a nice chimney stack, smoke coming out of the chimney. There's somebody standing at the door. This is the first time we have any record of another human being being at that cottage. She describes a very old lady, quite short in stature, just potting around, and her dog is just standing still, stiff as a board, just looking at her and growling and barking at this lady. The woman comes up and she starts apologising to the lady, and the lady completely blanks her, doesn't even recognise that she's there. No, the woman's a little bit, she's a bit standoffish. I'm not going to involve her in a conversation. She apologises and drags the dog away. And she's still expecting some sort of response from the lady. She turns around and goes, again, I'm really sorry about that. My dog's not normally like that. And the lady, again, carries on acting as if she isn't there. They turn away, they go back through the woods, and they leave it like that, first of all, thinking a very rude lady and doesn't want to engage in any conversation at all. They carry on their walk for about 20-25 minutes. On the way back, she bumps into a couple walking on with their dog, and the dogs are meeting up and sniffing around each other like dogs do, and she has a little conversation with them about the cottage. And she goes, I think I upset somebody earlier. The dog ran off, went into the woods, and was growling at the lady at the cottage. They looked at each other and gave her a bit of a strange look, but looked at each other as if to say, oh, here we go. They knew about the Phantom Cottage. They turned around and say to her, I bet you can't find that cottage again. What do you mean? And they go, come on, if you want to go and have a look at it, we'll come with you. They find it quite funny, this couple, that people see this cottage and then it never appears again. They follow her and she's going, no, you're crazy. Look, it's just up here. They walk into the woods. The lady knows exactly where she's going. Apparently there's a footpath that bears round to where this cottage is, and they go around this little foot track and the cottage isn't there. Though the clearing is sort of there, but it's overgrown, and it's not as if there's a purposed area where a cottage could be placed. There's nothing there. And she's looking at them going, I'm sure there's a cottage here. And she goes deeper and deeper into the woods going, maybe a bit further, maybe a bit further. And they're going to, you're not going to find it. This has happened before. And they explain to her all about these little mysteries and all that. We don't hear much more of it after that until my favourite time of the year, the deep depths of the winter when it's absolutely freezing and we've not got a heat wave and everything's covered in snow, and that is where we get an exciting of this little cottage. So we are still really in the early 2000s, and apparently this is quite a harsh winter, and over at Dartmoor everything was a blanket of snow. Wasn't deep thick snow, but enough to make everything look really sort of picturesque. A local gentleman is taking a walk and he knows the area really well, and he's lived there for decades. Not an inch that he doesn't know or hasn't trodden on before. He's walking down and he sees in the distance this wooded area and smoke coming out of the woods. He thinks that's a bit strange, and somebody may be camping in there having a little campfire, and he just toddles off and starts walking through the woods. And he said the woods is actually quite thick. What I don't get is that in previous reports, when it's the winter, they've said that it's quite sparse and you can see anything. In his story, he says the woods are quite thick. I guess woods can still be thick, depends what trees are in there. But he's walking through there. He comes to the edge of what he says isn't a clearing, but a pathway that leads up to a cottage. And this is the first time he's ever seen this cottage in his life. And he's standing there just taking this picture in. He said it's something out of a Dickens novel. This cottage is absolutely perfect. Everything is just pristine. Which is a contradiction to the last few stories where we've got that group of walkers going up there and saying that this cottage has been absolutely gutted. And I'm getting really confused now. I'm like, is this a cottage that has been abandoned, then reclaimed, done up, and then people are finding it again? But why can't they find this cottage anytime they want to? This gentleman is standing there thinking, I'm going to come back here with my camera and take some photos because it's just the most perfect picture ever. He goes, you know what, I may even take a photo of it, then go home and paint it. He goes home, gets his camera, goes back and following exactly the same track and can't find the cottage. That's the local guy who knows every single blade of grass in that area. He can't find that cottage. That I do find very, very strange. Now the next one contradicts what he just said. So we've got two hill walkers walking through the area and it's getting dark and they're trying to make their way over to Dartmoor. They're doing a bit of a, not a straight line challenge, but sort of like a long distance walk. And they're planning to do some wild camping along the way, just pitching their tent up out of the way, not bothering anybody, and then carrying on walking across over to Dartmoor. They come up to the woods, they go into the woods, and they're looking for a nice area just to put their tents up. When they come across an abandoned cottage, they go in, everything is out of that cottage. Again, they say that this cottage just looks absolutely beautiful from the outside, run down but absolutely beautiful. They go in now and they're going to spend the night in this cottage. So instead of sleeping outside with their tents and all that, they're setting up inside. So they've got their little cooking stoves out, about to cook some food, and they look over and they notice that there's some dry wood over by the fireplace. So they stack it up in the fireplace, light it, and they get the chimney going. And I think this is absolutely the best find ever. All cosy. There's nothing that's been destroyed inside that cottage. Everything's just been taken out. It's just gutted. An empty shell of a building. They think that they've struck gold. They're sitting there eating their food when they turn around and see a lady standing in the doorway. Now she doesn't enter the building. She just stands there staring at them and then turns and walks out. One of the boys gets up, goes to the door, looks out, and he can't see her. This gives them the creeps, but don't really think much of it. They spend the night there and they get up and they pack up their stuff in the morning and they head off. The rangers got back onto the footpath that leads out of the woods and heading up towards where they need to go, their goal, Dartmoor. They bump into two other hikers and they tell them that they struck gold last night and they found a cottage up there, and the hiker goes, what cottage? He goes, we've been through here loads of times, there's no cottage in the woods. He goes, yeah, just the one in the woods over there. He goes, well, they're going to be staying around here tonight, so they're thinking maybe that's the shelter they can use. So the guys turn around, walk back to show them this cottage, and again the cottage isn't there. So we've got these contradictory stories of this cottage being run down, being nice, run down, being nice, and it's just rather confusing. And I'll do a little bit of a recap and put you my thoughts at the end. But the last one is a COVID story. So as we know, COVID, everyone could take a little bit of exercise, but actually this is at the beginning of COVID when nobody could go out and people were doing key worker stuff. This comes from a lady that wasn't familiar with the area, but she was a retired nurse that had actually come back from being retired to help the local community and to deliver prescriptions and some healthcare to people that were isolating, that were high risk. She's come in with a load of prescriptions to the village and she's driving down, and as she comes in, the first time she notices this cottage over by the woods. And she thinks, oh, that's an absolutely stunning cottage. She drops off her deliveries. And again, back then, if you remember, you had to wear your mask and everything was gloves. If you're dropping off prescriptions to vulnerable people, you had to do it at arm's length or leave it on the door and walk away. She gets back into her van. She drives off to where this wood is, where she thinks the cottage is just behind. She parks up, gets out and walks into the woods. And yes, she finds this cottage. But again, it's in perfect condition. This is in 2020, so now all the other ones have been very early 2000s. This is 2020, and she describes this cottage as being absolutely stunning and beautiful. She observes it from far and just thinks it's beautiful, and then she gets back to her van and drives off. The next day, she's doing more deliveries. She comes back into the area, and the first thing she does is she's dropping down into the valley. She looks out to where the wood is and can't see the cottage, and she's quite puzzled. She drops off her prescription and she asks people in the village about this cottage, and they go, "It's the Phantom Cottage. Don't you know about it?" So this story must be known all over that little village now. I wonder if it's something they play upon as well. And in my summary of this, it's really confusing because there's a part of me that can't get out of my head that maybe it's the wrong wooded area they keep looking at. Two, there really might be a cottage in there that people just can't seem to find. All these people can't be wrong, is my third point. I mean, they can't all be wrong, can they? These people don't know about it. I know when they'd done that story, they were sure that the people hadn't spoke to each other, so no one knew each other on those first stories, so they were totally independent. Yes, after that, people could have seen this story in a book, because I say he's in two books.
A story in a book by Robert Z.D. Mix, playing on Spotify.
Okay, Google, stop. You might no comment about that. It's never happened before. That's real. That's bizarre. So yeah, this has been in books. So could they have read it and made up these stories themselves? If you know this village, or you know anyone living in this village, find out from them what is the feeling about this story now in their village. Do they all still know about it? Do they all still talk about it? The COVID story got written up and put into the COVID stories, so that was a little timepiece that they'd done. Everyone that was a key worker, they asked to do a little piece about their experiences during COVID, and this lady wrote about this disappearing cottage. So again, we know that she wrote about it. The rest of them, I don't know. Some of them feel like they're pulling my leg a little bit. The one where the guys stay in the cottage at night time happened to see a lady standing in the doorway that would link up to the lady with the dog, where the woman just totally blanks her. Did they know about that story and make up their own story? Did they hear about the cottage being empty and then make up their story? I don't know. Am I too sceptical? Am I too sceptical? Do I need to believe in Brigadoon? You keep saying about Brigadoon in my comments. By the way, Brigadoon, brilliant film. You just can't find it anymore. He's like a Brigadoon itself. He's never put on telly. I don't think the DVD you can get, and if you do, it's about 20 odd quid. He's not on those streaming services. So if you can find Brigadoon, let me know and I'll download it. But it's a good film. But is it a Brigadoon? It's weird type of... It's in the middle of the woods. It's private. The owner reckons there's never ever been a building there before. It is a massive head scratcher. And I'm about to scratch my head just saying about that. But I'm confused. I really am confused with this one. As I say, there are loads of these stories. They are all very, very similar, which is why I don't want to do loads of them, because they're all going to be, oh, they see this mansion house and they couldn't see the mansion house. They're going to be pretty short. Lucky enough with these ones, we've got a lot more information to back it up on. There is another one that I am going to cover. May not be the next video, but it may be pretty soon. May drop it on a Sunday or something like that. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the time slips. We've got some weird other phenomenon that I'd like to drop into these videos that we can talk about. But again, it's hot. It's going to be a hot week again. Look after yourselves. My voice is going. I've got some burn, I think. So I'm going to sort myself out, put some after sun on, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.